What's the car brand you would never buy again, and why? I work as a mechanic. Avoid pretty much everything except Honda or Toyota. I prefer Honda. Much easier to work on. Toyota labor times for repairs are absolutely stupid. On a 5.7L Tundra you have to remove the engine to remove the power steering rack. On the Sienna van you have to support the engine. Drop the subframe to replace the lower control arms. Absolutely stupid shit. The Corolla/Prius/Matrix is fine. Built like any other car. But they also rust. Anything Euro has high parts costs. And sometimes poor parts availability. They also have odd tire sizes. Anything GM has variable valve timing issues. As well as carbon buildup issues. I call more electronics and computers on Chrysler products. Some people can go 250k without issues. Others don't even make it like 100k. Their 3.6L has issues with the oil filter housing. Roller follower issues that can kill the engine. Their 2.4L is okay, but every application they put it in, the rest of the car is crap. I call more engines on Hyundai/Kias than any other make. Ford does hit or miss. Their 1.5L, 1.6L EcoBoosts are absolute trash. Run for the hills. The 2.0L and 2.3L are okay. They have issues with the cooling system. If you don't keep up with oil changes you can have VVT issues. Most people with the 2.0L and 2.3L are okay. The 6SP front wheel drive transmission and PTU or transfer case, however, are not super great. 6SP can have issues with rough shifting. The PTU does not hold enough oil and will slowly kill itself. The new Escapes/Edge have almost double the oil capacity. The Escapes with the 8SP Auto. Their 2.7L is surprisingly good. The 3.5L EcoBoost has issues with the turbos and VVT failing as well. The turbos foul the oil quicker than an engine. So if you don't do your oil changes and start getting sludge buildup, the VVTs clog up and fail. That being said, I've seen two F-150 3.5L EcoBoost with over 400k on them. The 5.0L Coyote is bulletproof. Biggest issue is the cooling system, water pump, plastic hoses, etc. For Honda, their V6 with the 5SP transmission. The transmission can be kind of an issue, especially in larger vehicles like the Pilot and van. Their 9SP and early Gen 10SP were problematic with bad shift behavior, but their newer stuff, like 2020 Plus, has been okay. Their 1.5L Turbo had issues with fuel going into the engine oil, but they had a bunch of recalls that fixed it. My two personal vehicles, 2011 Mustang GT with the 5.0L and manual, and a 2008 Ford Escape V6 Ord. Not me, but my parents. Dodge. My parents had a Dodge Caliber that had so many issues with the transmission, axles, engine, exhaust, and so much more that it made me never want to own a Dodge. When I do buy a car one day, I've heard other Dodge owners having issues too. It's literally right in the name Dodge. Daily overhauls do get expensive. Fun fact. I have made millions of dollars by selling one thing, and one thing only. Range Rover engines. I own a salvage yard, and I know what the high demand parts for all vehicles are. Gives you a good idea on what is going to eventually go out. And I get so many Range Rover engine calls that I have an entire garage bay dedicated to those engines only. What manufacturers do you rarely, if ever, get calls about? Jeep. Bought a Grand Cherokee, and it spent more time in the shop than being driven by us. Never again. People think I exaggerate when I say the mechanic had my car more than I did about my Jeep Patriot. It's not an exaggeration. I sold that thing as fast as I could after a year of it being in and out of the mechanic. I believe you, friend. Based on the comments, never buy a car of any make. Lol me. I used to have a Saturn. And since they went out of business, I guess that's why I won't get another. I loved my Saturn. Even though it was used. It was dependable, and I never had a problem with it. Even at 120k miles. I was a sad panda when they closed shop and disappeared. Mine was upwards of 200k and worked great. Despite how younger me abused its poor plastic body. Very happy that I can't find anyone saying Subaru lol. Lol, I was searching specifically for Subaru. My Forester Wilderness is the best vehicle I've ever owned. I had a Jeep Cherokee before, and it was the worst. My family and I all swear by Subaru lol. They are so resilient, and are the best for wintry areas. I've also had a Ford Explorer which I got very emotionally attached to, but realistically was a pose. I still drive my 2002 Subaru WRX wagon. That a couple new cars. Save for a built 2008 ST. I still love this one the most. Just spent a couple G's on preventative repairs. Good for another 100k miles, 165 km. Range Rover. I've yet to drive by one that was more than 2 years old and that wasn't making a noise. There's a lot of 2012/13/14 Evoques driving around in South Africa. Maybe that one is good, although I've never been in one, so I might not be familiar with the noises. Also not that much into Range Rovers, so not sure which year these Evoques are, but they are early 2010s. Wonder if these are ones stolen from Canada and abroad. Wife wanted a Land Rover. I used to work at a dealership and they always needed maintenance, or had something break on it. I told her, if she wanted one then she has to have her backup car first. Lamborghini. Can't afford one. 2020 was the first year that I wasn't able to go to Italy to test out the new Lamborghini due to COVID. Every year before that, I couldn't go because I was poor. You made some real progress during the pandemic. Ford. Because they tried that dual clutch transmission BS, and I had to get my new car serviced like 5 different times the first year, and I was scared to drive it outside of town because it shut off on me, locked up, and wouldn't start again when I was driving on a back road to family for Christmas. 2 hours away from home. Had to get picked up, and my car towed the next day. 3 times I had to get my board flashed, or some shit. During COVID I did a voluntary repossession, because I was done with that car. Agreed. Ford. Same reason. That damn transmission failed on me by 30k miles, and needed to be replaced. I got rid of the car. Ford got sued, lost, but never really made it right. They should have put up new transmissions for everyone who had one of those pieces of shit. Transmissions that weren't garbage. But nope. They are dead to me. Hot Wheels. The car was tiny. It didn't even have an engine. Great gas mileage though. What is this? A car for ants. It needs to be at least 3 times bigger. Jeep. Never again. I always wondered if you could aftermarket one of those into being reliable. Yes and no. If you do it right it's not hard to increase the reliability of a vehicle, but it seems what I see more often is people do things like lift their Jeep and put bigger wheels and different suspension and linkage, and then they end up with a death wobble. I won't say never, but unlikely I'd buy a BMW again. The daily experience and driving experience was great, but anything service/maintenance related was a shit show. I once had to replace the battery, and given it should just be a pull the old one out, drop the new one in operation. That's what I did. It sent the whole car's electronics haywire. I bring it into BMW, and they tell me that I shouldn't do my own maintenance. I'm like, WTF do you mean? I ended up having to get a new OEM battery that cost like $600. Absolutely crazy. I heard about stuff like that. Didn't think it was true. Dodge. Older Dodge cars kinda get a pass, but the new stuff? I'd rather walk. I agree. I've had several over the years. Plymouth, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and ever damned one had some weird electrical gremlins or needed suspension components swapped out pretty regularly. I did the wheel bearings on a 2008 Ice Stratus about 6 times over the 3 years I owned it. What a miserable hunk of ass that thing was. Chrysler, or anything under the Chrysler umbrella. Burned bad by my Jeep. Went to VW/Book, no issues. Ironically, my whole family works at Jeep. Guess that speaks to the work behind them. FYI, that whole umbrella is called Stellantis. Oh I know, I work in automotive, and have for the last 5 years. Stellantis or Chrysler, it's still junk. Ford, Chevy, nothing but issues. Switched to Toyota and Honda. Threads like these are pointless, I've realized. Damn near every car manufacturer will be listed. Case in point here. My last 2 Fords took me 300k miles a pop with no issues beyond normal wear and tear. Yet you experience nothing but issues and recommend Toyota and Honda. My current Honda? It randomly dies on me in the middle of driving, and their techs can't find any issue, and I've had to have the ACK fixed 3 times since 2019. Mercedes. They're just too complicated and have too many potential failure spots. They're really well made vehicles for the most part, and a lot of the stuff you can wrench on yourself. But they have 2x the fussy parts. For example, the air suspension. Just put on normal struts and not have all the level sensors, pumps and air bladder to fail, or the headrests. Do they need to be power adjustable? The motor will eventually fail. Mercedes isn't really meant for anyone that cares about maintenance costs though. Sob because the company has gone, and they are all now getting too old for a daily driver. I want to say Alfa Romeo, but I know I'll end up with a Gilead at some point. That will break both my heart and my wallet. Oh Saab, if you hadn't gone out of business and sold the remaining IP to China, I would still drive you. So quirky. More fun than Volvo but just as sturdy. Just got to find the right mechanic. My 925 Aero hot estate with the sport pack and a 5-speed manual was hilarious in a straight line, but corners were not its strong point. Parts were either ridiculously cheap, if they were GM parts, or eye-wateringly expensive, if they were bespoke Saab parts. It was a lovely thing to be in, though. How about just a list of cars that I would actually buy? Toyota, Honda. That's it. Until I have money beyond comfort and security, I won't buy anything outside those 2 brands. And even at that, I wouldn't buy anything newer than 2019. They are making them like SHT these days. These days. Toyota hybrids. Especially 1.81s, 2ZR-FXE engine, CHR, Corolla, Prius, Auris, Lexus Court are pretty much the most reliable cars in the world. Unbreakable engine. Bulletproof ECVT transmission. No turbo. No alternator. No starter. No clutch. Just a simple build with excellent fuel efficiency. Been driving them for 10 plus years, and other than regular annual services, all these cars needs is petrol. That includes 2019 CHR and currently 2023 Corolla. I've literally spent exactly $0 on repairs on my Toyotas, and during that time I've covered like 250k kilometers. The only S on new Toyotas, like all other cars BTW, is a paint job. It's so thin and fragile you can scratch it just by looking at it. I despise Kia Souls. Anyways, I hate Kia and Renault Edit. Thanks for 100 upvotes. This is by far the most I've gotten. My neighbor had a Kia Soul, and after 1 month she had a personal mechanic come and fix her car every weekend. And he would be fixing it all Saturday. I told her she should sue because of the lemon law, but she didn't want to. Very few Audi vehicles get to their 10th birthday. I hardly ever see them on the road, which is a sign that owners faced repairs that weren't cost effective. My mechanic complains how cheap repairs turn expensive, such as having to remove the front bumper to replace the radiator. Audi is definitely it. It's a car that sits at a high middle class price point, but keeping it running costs as much as a high-end luxury car. Nissan. Worked for them and saw too many of those CVT trannies go out to ever consider one, and I warn others if they are considering getting one for that reason. I had a CVT test under 60k miles. The only reason they agreed to fix it under warranty is I had access to a scanner that could point out the failure death code over and over. Got a replacement and now my car struggles to get 25 miles per gallon. I'll never own a Nissan again. Tesla. Had 3. All 3 are just garbage quality. Dealing with customer service is brutal because there is no customer service. If you live outside one of the largely populated areas for Teslas, avoid at all costs. Honest question because I'm curious. Why after the first one did you buy 2 more? BMW. Expensive to buy, expensive to fix, and an overall pain in the ear when it comes to DIY. I didn't find my E46, E39 or current E60 difficult to work on. That probably because my standard of difficult to work on was set by Alfa Romeo and Puget. The Alfa required you to have 4 elbows and 2 wrists to change a headlight bulb. My E46 is 19 years old and I'm keeping it. What a machine. I'm the first owner BTW. My 04E46 330i Sport manual was a hoodlum of a car and really encouraged me to drive like a cock. I only got rid of it because I couldn't fit 3 kiddie seats in the back. Chevy, $1 to the mechanic for every dollar in the gas tank. Have not had great luck with domestic brands. Camaros and Corvettes are pretty reliable, especially for sports cars. Their trucks are okay too. I would avoid everything else though. Mini. I knew it would eventually be a headache and surely became one, though it drove beautifully. While I did own it, I leased one and bloody loved it. Great little gocket. Yeah, I had the first generation Clubman S in British racing green, tan interior, and 6-speed manual. It was glorious little machine, but caused me more in repairs than my next car costed me total. Any American car basically. I've personally found that Ford seems to be the best of American made cars, but that's not exactly a flex. I've been in the auto industry 30 plus years. None of them. I buy Chevrolet because they are extremely easy and less expensive to fix, and parts for older models are readily available. That's it. Every manufacturer has some garbage. It's picking through the garbage to find models and packages that last a long time with proper maintenance. I also very rarely ever see anything over 250k due to the rust belt, and a majority of those over it are GM products. Silverados will rust away before dying if treated well. I have 2 fleets with most models well over 300k. Toyota and Honda next. Usually rust away. Chrysler is total garbage. I will never purchase any of their products, and now that they are owned by a hedge fund they are worse. Ford is trembling on getting really bad. The F-150s are not 200k trucks. The only owners who love their F-150s are those that trade them in around 50k for another. Subaru is up and down. Same with Hyundai and Kia. Certain years and models are awesome, others not so much. Nissan is a nightmare, along with Mitsu. Don't get me started on any European models. The first owners treat them well, the second owners get hosed a bit, and the third owners are so methed out they don't know what they own. But this is for my region and area. Your mileage may vary. There will be comments stating, but my has been awesome. Yes, yours has. I'm painting with a white brush on averages. Jetta because it broke down 4 times before I paid it off. Thank God I had Gap on my Jetta. Still had to wait about 6 months before they paid it off. FVW. Anything grams. For some reason between my Pontiac, Buick, and Chevy, none of them lasted to 150k miles without significant issues. I swapped to a Honda that lasted to 286k miles before the transmission started slipping. My Nissan is at 143k miles and still running flawlessly. My 2 Accords got to 180k miles before we swapped them out. My Mazda is at 80k and still running as good as new. The Japanese have earned my money. I was disappointed to hear about Honda partnering with GM, but that seems to have fizzled out. Thank goodness. My Mazda 3 just hit 80k and seems to be running just about good as new. My Ford Taurus hit 110k and basically fell apart, so I'm fearing the Mazda dying soon.